There are moments in sports when the story refuses to be simple. When the narrative the world has already written gets ripped up and replaced by something nobody saw coming. And for Caitlyn Clark, that moment did not arrive in a single flash of brilliance. It arrived slowly, then all at once, across 7 days in San Juan, Puerto Rico, in front of a crowd that came specifically to watch her, through a week of ups and downs and noise and silence and body language that launched a million debates online. It arrived in the shape of a trophy, a tournament MVP award. The same one she won 5 years ago at the U19 level, now earned on the biggest international stage of her professional life. But the road from that Puerto Rico game, the one where the internet decided she was being frozen out and the offense looked like it was being run by 5 people who had never met, to standing in that arena as the undisputed best player of the entire tournament, that road is the real story. And if you only watched the highlights, you missed it. 8 months. That is how long Caitlyn Clark had been away from competitive basketball before she walked into the Coliseum José Miguel Agrelot in San Juan and checked into her first senior national team game. 8 months is not a rough stretch. It is not a minor injury that knocks someone out for a few weeks and sends them back a little rusty. 8 months is the kind of absence that forces a player to reintroduce themselves to the game, to rebuild timing with their body, to rediscover rhythms that used to feel automatic. Clark had played just 13 games in her entire second WNBA season after a groin injury in July derailed what had been a historically efficient start. She had averaged 16.5 points, almost 9 assists and 5 rebounds per game before the injury hit, numbers that put her in genuinely elite company. And then she disappeared from competitive basketball entirely. No games, no regular season minutes to shake, off the rust. Just training, recovery, and 8 months of everyone wondering whether she would come back as the same player. So when FIBA announced she would be part of Team USA's qualifying tournament roster, the basketball world locked in immediately. Iowa jerseys started appearing in the stands in San Juan days before the first game. The arena felt less like a qualifying tournament and more like a full-scale Caitlyn Clark viewing event. The crowd did not come to watch Team USA in the abstract. They came to see her specifically, and the tension in that building before her first appearance was exactly what you feel at a concert when the lights go down and the energy shifts, and 50,000 people simultaneously hold their breath. The question was not whether she could still play. Everyone knew she could play. The question was what version of her was going to walk back out onto that court after everything her body had been through. And then the Senegal game happened, and she answered every single one of those questions in 19 minutes. 17 points, 12 assists, 0 turnovers, a plus-minus of +35 in less than 20 minutes of action coming off the bench. She did not just play well in that debut. She rewrote the record books. Those 12 assists in a single half set a FIBA Women's World Cup qualifying record that nobody had come close to before. She found cutters her own teammates had not realized were open yet. She pushed the tempo before the defense was even set. She made Ryan Howard look like she was getting layups on a practice court. She made Kiki Iriafen look like she had been playing alongside Clark for years. She reorganized the geometry of the entire floor just by having the ball in her hands, and the whole offense moved like water around her. The Clark effect was not a narrative. It was not hype. It was right there in plain sight for anyone watching to see. And then the Puerto Rico game happened. And if the Senegal performance was the moment that reminded the world what she could do, the Puerto Rico game was the moment that complicated everything. Because Clark, who had just set a FIBA record 24 hours earlier, was nearly invisible on offense. She shot 2 of 6 from the field, 1 of 5 from 3. 8 points in 18 minutes coming off the bench in a game where her own teammates repeatedly failed to find her on possessions where she was the clearly open option. Clips circulated on social media almost before the quarter ended. People watched Kahleah Copper hold the ball on the wing while the shot clock bled down, dribble into traffic, force her way into a double team, and not once look in Clark's direction, despite Clark standing feet set on the perimeter. People watched Angel Reese make reads that somehow, possession after possession, left the most dangerous shooter on the floor standing alone with her hands ready and the ball going somewhere else. And then there was the body language that broke the internet before the final buzzer even sounded. Clark came off the bench during a stoppage and went down the line giving daps to her teammates one by one. Fist bumps, shoulder taps, the standard energy up routine. And then Reese walked past and there was nothing. No handout, no eye contact. Just Clark looking forward and moving on as if the space where Reese had been was empty. The clip went to millions of views across every platform within minutes. Whether it meant exactly what people thought it meant is a separate question. But when you stack it on top of everything else that had happened in those 40 minutes, the ball movement that vanished, the open shooter who kept getting ignored, the offense that went from poetry against Senegal to something slow and disconnected and frustrating in Puerto Rico, the clip told a story whether anyone wanted it to or not. Here is what people were not paying enough attention to in all of that, though. Even in the Puerto Rico game, while being actively ignored on offense, Clark was not coasting. She was not shutting down and waiting for better circumstances. She got a block. She got a steal. She went coast to coast off a stolen pass, drove to the basket, got fouled on the layup, took a hit to the head going up, and still somehow converted the and-one opportunity while maintaining her body control. Every single time she touched the ball in that game, something good happened. The possessions where the offense stalled were the possessions where the ball was not in her hands. That was not opinion. That was just what the tape showed, and the tape does not have feelings about who it makes look good. What happened next is the part that does not get enough credit. After the game, Clark walked up to the press conference podium with everything she needed to light the internet on fire, and she left all of it on the table. She had the receipts. She had the stats from the night before and the contrast of what happened when she had the ball versus when she did not. She had a ready-made narrative that would have run on ESPN for 72 straight hours if she had wanted to activate it. All it would have taken was one loaded pause, one carefully worded sentence about ball movement, one raised eyebrow in the direction of a specific teammate. She gave none of it. She said the offense felt clunky. She said Puerto Rico's zone disrupted their pace. She said Team USA needed to be better in transition and not let defenses settle. She praised Paige Buchers. She called Puerto Rico's crowd incredible. She said the team would figure it out. And when a reporter asked whether the struggles were caused by Puerto Rico's defense or by Team USA's own mistakes, she did not dodge it or redirect it or blame the zone. She said it was mostly self-inflicted. Think about what that actually means. She took collective ownership on behalf of a team that had spent 40 minutes not giving her the ball. She absorbed something that had every right to sting and gave back professionalism so clean it barely registered as anything other than a basketball player talking about a basketball game. That is who she is under pressure. And now that foundation was laid. Now the tournament had to keep moving. Italy was next, and Clark delivered 12 points and 5 assists in 22 minutes on 4 of 5 shooting from the field. Efficient and purposeful. The kind of performance that does not generate a viral moment, but quietly tells you a player is finding her footing. She was reading the game faster. The ball was moving with more intention. The chaos of the Puerto Rico game had not rattled her. If anything, it had sharpened something. The Italy game was a reset. A chance to breathe and recalibrate and remind herself and everyone around her what the offense looks like when people are actually playing together. And then came New Zealand. And everything changed in a way that felt almost deliberate. Coach Nate Tibbetts, who had stepped into the role alongside the rest of the staff, named Clark a starter for the first time in the tournament. Not off the bench, not running the second unit, not waiting for her moment to check in and make something happen in limited minutes. Starting. With the first unit, with the first defensive possession and the first offensive opportunity, and the responsibility of setting the tone from the opening tip. She missed her first three-point attempt. It did not matter. She knocked down her second immediately after, and the offense locked into a rhythm that had not been there since the Senegal game. 14 points, 6 assists, 2 steals, 55% from the field, 4 of 4 at the free throw line. 23 minutes of the most cohesive basketball team USA had played since the tournament opened. And while she was doing all of that, she also quietly did something that had nothing to do with the box score. Against New Zealand, Clark surpassed Chelsea Gray for the most assists by a Team USA player in a single FIBA World Cup qualifying tournament. 25 assists across 4 games, with 1 still left to play. Gray had set that record across 3 games in 2020. Clark eclipsed it in 4 and still had Spain to go. Records are just numbers until you understand the context behind them. The context here is that Clark was running an offense made up almost entirely of players she had never played with before, against international defenses designed to take away exactly what she does best, coming off 8 months of no competitive basketball, and she was still distributing the ball at a level no Team USA player had ever reached in this format. That is not a warm-up performance. That is a player operating at a historically elite level while everyone around her was still figuring out how to fully use her. And then there was Spain, the final game of the round-robin stage. The one opponent in the whole field that came in with a legitimate chance to make things genuinely difficult. Spain was disciplined, physical, and led by Megan Gustafson, a fellow Iowa product who knew exactly what Clark likes to do and had spent her own career building the kind of basketball IQ that makes international play difficult for anyone trying to run an offense through one primary creator. Team USA won 84-70. It was their closest game of the tournament by 28 points. And Clark was the reason the margin did not get scarier than it did. 7 points. 7 assists. The only block on the board for the United States. 22 minutes and 29 seconds of exactly the kind of disciplined, patient, read-the-defense playmaking that makes elite guards great in high-stakes international competition. She was not forcing anything. She was not trying to prove a point. She was just playing, and every time she touched the ball in those final minutes, the offense had options and angles it did not have when someone else was running the show. The tournament was over. Team USA went 5-0. They outscored their opponents by an average of 42 points per game. And when FIBA announced the MVP, it was not Paige Buchers, who had played brilliantly throughout. It was not Kalia Copper, who led the team in scoring on multiple nights. It was not Ryan Howard or Jackie Young or anyone else. It was Caitlyn Clark. 11.6 points per game, 6.4 assists per game, leading the entire tournament. 52.9% shooting from the field, 40% from 3. A 14.6 average efficiency rating, the best on the entire team. An all-time assists record for Team USA in a qualifying tournament that will stand until someone finds a way to be as consistently, relentlessly, impossibly generous with the basketball as she was all week in San Juan. And here's the thing about what actually changed from the Puerto Rico game to the MVP trophy. It was not Clark. Clark did not change. She was doing the same things in the Puerto Rico game that she did in every other game. Reading the floor, finding open players, pushing the tempo, making the right decision. What changed around her? What changed was the starting lineup. What changed was which teammates were sharing the court with her, and how much they trusted her reads, and how willing they were to move the ball instead of holding it. What changed was the coaching staff's willingness to put her in a position where she could actually dictate pace from the beginning of a possession, rather than inheriting situations that were already compromised. What changed was every game that followed Puerto Rico giving her one more opportunity to show the people around her what happens when the system flows through her instead of around her. The Puerto Rico game was not a story about Caitlyn Clark failing. It was a story about a system failing to use what it had. And every game after, it was a story about what happens when that starts to correct itself. She's 23 years old. She had not played competitive basketball in 8 months. She came off the bench for the majority of her first senior national team tournament. She was named MVP anyway. She broke a Team USA record that had stood since 2020. She finished the week with the best efficiency rating on the squad. She led the entire field in assists. She took responsibility at a press conference for failures that were not hers alone to own. She did not start fires. She did not give the media ammunition. She did not make the story about the noise. She just kept playing, game by game, possession by possession, trust by trust. And by the end of the week, the question was not whether she deserved to be there. The question was how any offense in the world thinks it can be better without her running it. Berlin is next. September. The full FIBA Women's World Cup on the biggest international stage the sport has to offer. Team USA will arrive as heavy favorites, chasing their 12th world title, carrying the most complete guard in the game. The opponents will be better than Puerto Rico, better than New Zealand, better than everyone in San Juan. They will press differently and zone differently and make adjustments Clark has not seen yet. And there will be noise again because there is always noise around her. There will be debates and clips and narratives and moments where the body language gets dissected on social media before the quarter is even finished. But here is what we know now that we did not fully know before this tournament. We know she can come back from 8 months of nothing and look like she never left. We know she can absorb a freeze-out and respond with professionalism instead of fuel for a drama cycle. We know she can break records while sitting on a bench and waiting for the minutes that give her a chance to actually show what she is. And we know that when the system around her is finally willing to let her run, the whole thing moves differently. Better. Faster. Like it was designed that way all along. The question going into Berlin is not whether Caitlyn Clark can handle the moment. San Juan answered that. The question is whether everyone around her will have figured out by then what this week in Puerto Rico already proved. When she has the ball, the offense has a heartbeat. When she does not, it flatlines. That is not a complicated equation. It just requires people to be willing to see it. And if this week in San Juan taught us anything at all, it is that Caitlyn Clark will keep showing up and keep making the right play and keep letting the tape do the talking for as long as it takes for everyone in the building to finally understand what they are looking at. The game has had its answer for a while now. The question is whether the game is ready to act on it. Berlin will tell us everything, and the whole world will be watching.